Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry we are running late. We've been having some technical difficulties. Let me see if I can invite Dr. Lodi to our discussion. Give me 1 second. I'm really looking forward to this live discussion. It's going to be so informative. Let's see if anybody is there.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Boy, this is, excuse me, I was trying to put this on my computer because I don't like these little phones, but I couldn't do it because I don't know my password. Oh,
Okay, no worries. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this live. Sorry it took a bit of time. I think there was a bit of technical difficulties and miscommunication.
yeah. Well, there's always technical because I don't know how to play with, I don't know how to play with electronics like this.
Yeah,
So I'm not good at
yeah,
it.
I'm also very new to this, so
I can't log in. I don't know my password, so I can't log in.
no worries. Well, we are all set. And I would love to introduce you to everybody that is going to view this video. So everybody, thank you very much for joining us live. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Thomas Lodi, one of my favorite integrative oncologists. And I'm going to just read to you, otherwise I'm going to forget half of what I want to say. So today I have the honor to introduce you to the world-renowned Dr. Thomas Lodi. My introduction cannot do you justice, but I'm going to give you a short and powerful introduction. So Dr. Thomas Lodi has been a medical doctor for around 39 years plus. He is an expert in oncology, nutrition, holistic medicine, cardiology, and much more. He is an integrative medicine oncologist, which is the integration of conventional medicine with alternative medicine, which complements each other. He has pioneered what has now become the definitive route for those unsatisfied with the modern cancer treatment system. Dr. Lodi also is the founder of an integrative cancer treatment center in Arizona. He is a teacher by heart, which is why I absolutely love listening to him and his teachings because it's very insightful and easy to understand. He does live streams on social media every Sunday night around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where you can ask him questions. He is always available on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Dr. Lodi has revolutionized the integrative oncology industry worldwide and developed an online program that empowers everyone to take control of their health and their healing. He has a dynamic Stop Making Cancer course, which is self-paced, evidence-based program that includes information on both conventional and alternative therapies, as well as instructions and trainings so that people can begin their own journey back to health immediately from their own homes. So, and a quote from Dr. Lodi is, "The goal is not merely to eliminate the existence of cancer, but to restore health so that the cancer does not return." So thank you very much for your willingness to have this interview where we can discuss what cancer is and how it starts and what we can do to support our bodies to stop these chronically fermenting cells.
All right.
So Dr.
Very good.
Lodi, thank you very much for giving us your time. And I would like to just dive into the questions. And if you can just give us the best descriptions and information that you can around these questions, that will be much appreciated.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. So the first question would be, can you please describe to us what is cancer, these chronically fermenting cells?
Yes. Well, first of all, the word cancer in English, if you look it up and try to find the meaning, there is no meaning to it. There's only meaning is people that are born between June 21st and July 20th in the Western zodiac, and so that's the sign you would be, a Cancer sign. Right before that, you're Gemini. After that, you're Leo, and now that word has no other meaning. It has no meaning. And the reason we communicate, the reason we use words to communicate is because words carry meaning. So if I say
Yes,
the word table, I've communicated information. You can picture a table. Um,
exactly.
and even if I say the word philosophy, it's vague, but you understand that you understand what it is. It's discussions and deep discussions, etc. Religion, any word carries information. The word cancer in this context has no meaning. Now, um, but it does carry something that is very powerful, and that is the emotion of fear. Because in whatever language it is, like in Thailand here, they call it maling. And so when they hear the word maling, they hear the word death. When we hear the word
Okay,
cancer, we hear the word death. It's the same
that's
thing.
correct.
And this is not by accident. This was planned long ago by the I'm not sure how to classify this guy. John D. Rockefeller was uh, I don't know, maybe one of the most evil men ever in the history of humanity. But I mean, he foresaw 120, 130 years ahead how to accomplish what he started. So he took over medical education, blah, blah, blah. He invented this thing called diseases and all that. And now we've got this, the whole world believes in diseases. And one of them is called cancer. And this one here has no meaning, but if you get it, oh my God. And so there's no meaning to it. So when you hear it, you are scared to death. You no longer have access to your rational mind. You can't make decisions. It's as if somebody stole your future.
Yeah.
Uh, it's as if someone said all of your agendas, all of your lists, everything you wanted to do in life is no longer relevant. And so when people hear that, they'll say, okay, now we're going to cut that off. Okay. And then we're going to poison you. Okay. And then we're going to burn you with radiation. Okay. And so we acquiesce out of fear. So that's what it communicates, and it's meant to communicate that. Now, what really happens is that the body is a biological entity, and all biological entities have um, uh, uh, a set of mechanisms that we call homeostasis. In other words, it must maintain
Yes.
its integrity, right, regardless of what happens. So that's what homeostasis is. It's learning how to balance and maintain your function regardless of what happens to you outside, right? And so um, uh, that's what happens. So it's called homeostasis. So anyway, our cells need energy. All cells need energy. They need 57 kilojoules per mole. That's what they need in scientific terms. No matter what, whether it's an elbow cell or a heart cell that's beating 100 times a minute, it doesn't matter. Every cell needs that amount of energy. And we get that energy from these little organelles inside of the cell called mitochondria. And they're very efficient.
Correct.
They take 1 glucose, 6 oxygens, and they make 38 energy molecules called ATP. So 1 glucose, 38. Very efficient. And so we're operating like that. And why do we need to have that much energy? Because every second, each cell is undergoing 1 billion chemical reactions. Every second, each cell.
Wow.
So if you think we have 37 trillion cells in our body, then it's 37 trillion, or 37 times a billion, which is 37 sextillion, which is 21 zeros. If you think we have 100 trillion cells, like some people do, then we would have more. But anyway, it's 36, 37, 50, whatever it is, with 21 zeros. That's how many chemical reactions are going on every second. They need to be powered, all right? And they need to be powered by energy. So we're constantly making energy. And if anything disturbs our ability to make energy, we have to adapt quickly, otherwise perish. So we live in a toxic world. The air, our clothing, our food, the stuff we drink, everything. And now we have EMF, and we have all of these. It's just a cumulative onslaught of toxins. And so our body has to learn to defend itself. And we don't we're not doing as well as we could. So in any case, the most vulnerable part of a cell is the mitochondria because they have oxygen. So oxygen is like a two-edged sword. You know, we really need oxygen, but I wouldn't light a match around an oxygen tank because it'll blow up. So on a biochemical level, it's very much the same. We need it, but it also turns into what are called free radicals.
Exactly.
And so the mitochondria are full of free radicals. And so they're very, very vulnerable. So once about 30% of them get knocked out because of toxins, the cell adapts. And the adaptation is to learn how to ferment, because fermentation is the most fundamental way of making energy. And so it makes all these changes. It turns up this gene, turns off that gene. It makes all these epigenetic changes so that it can survive and be a chronically fermenting cell. And that's what it becomes, a chronically fermenting cell. So when I use that word and you hear it, it transmits information. Now you know, you can picture it, you understand it, and then you can say, how did that happen? Oh, okay, so then I have to, so it gives you a strategy, it gives you a way of dealing with it, and it's information, and there's zero emotion, right? So that's why we use that. So please, if you have CFCs, if you have chronically fermenting cells, don't ever use that word again. In whatever language you have, don't use it. And if anybody asks you about it, just don't acknowledge that word. That word it has no meaning to you. You have chronically fermenting cells, period. And the reason I'm telling you this is because whether you know it or not, if you have that condition, every time you hear it, even if you're in a restaurant and somebody that you don't know says that word over there, you just got stabbed in the heart. It's that powerful. So you have to realize that you cannot put yourself in a position. So words are very powerful. Anyway, that's what it is. It's chronically fermenting cells.
Oh, thank you very much. That is a brilliant explanation. I think it puts it in perspective because, I mean, it's the cell that is trying to survive. So it just starts to ferment amongst the like you say, the free radicals and the toxins and everything is there. The cell is trying to survive. So yeah, it puts it in perspective. So, well, let's go on to the next question. So we've now already talked about these free radicals. So what is chronic low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress? And how does inflammation and oxidative stress plays a role in these chronically fermenting cells?
Okay. Well, inflammation, there's two kinds of inflammation. There's acute and chronic.
Yes.
So, and inflammation, acute inflammation is actually the way we heal. And so what it is on a very, if you want to get down and look at it on a cellular or a tissue level, if some tissue gets injured, you bang your finger with a hammer, something like that, you cut it. Now it has to heal. So what happens is all the blood vessels dilate around there and it sends in more and more blood. And in that blood, in that blood are not only oxygen and nutrients and things like that, but white blood cells. And they go there to heal, to help get rid of any waste and clean it up like that. And the lack of oxygen stimulates a series of reactions in the wound that stimulates new blood vessel growth, that stimulates tissue growth, all those sorts of things, and you heal. So you banged your finger, and for 3 or 4 days it'll be swollen, and then it's healed, and then it goes away. But chronic inflammation is you keep banging it because you're not that smart. So you keep banging it and banging it and banging it. Now, it, instead of trying to heal, it needs to protect itself from the chronic assault, and so you develop a callus. It's like if you went out in the yard and you were raking leaves, and you hadn't done that in a long time, you would have blisters, and that would be acute inflammation. And then if you didn't go out in the yard again, they would heal in a few days. But if you went out again every day, pretty soon they're going to turn hard and they become what we call calluses because they're defending themselves from this chronic insult. So it's a different story. Defending means it's growing new tissue, right? It's proliferating, which is what you don't want. right? So in other words, I think it should be called something else. I don't think they should call it acute and chronic inflammation, because what chronic inflammation means growth and scar I mean, it's a completely different story. Anyway, low grade underlying chronic inflammation prevents the body from functioning normally, because it's now has to deal with all of the chemicals being produced by inflammation. So inflammation produces all kinds of nasty chemicals. And so the body is no longer functioning. I mean, it's functioning, but it's spending a good percentage of its time protecting itself from this chronic inflammatory process. So what causes chronic inflammation? And probably, I don't know if most people don't want to hear this, but the most fundamental thing that causes chronic inflammation is eating cooked food. Okay. And this has been proven. It's been proven. You know, they did a study where they took people from the age 18 to 80 who were eating uncooked food for a minimum of 3.5 years, some of them 20 years. And the other group, 18 to 80, ate normally. And they did all these blood tests on them. The people who were eating uncooked food, their CRP, which is a blood test to look at inflammation, was undetectable. Undetectable. And everybody else has CRP. So they basically had no inflammation, because when you're eating cooked food, you're basically eating something that's artificial. It's not what nature produced, and your body is dependent. So anyway, so chronic inflammation sets up and underlies all chronic degenerative conditions. So the other question you asked was oxidative stress. And all that means is that during chronic inflammation, we are producing free radicals. Okay. And that causes oxidative stress. Also, if you are living in the 21st century and you're being poisoned all the time, you're getting exposed to free radicals all the time. EMF, when we get EMF, immediately it produces free radicals. So our bodies are always under oxidative stress. Our bodies are always trying to protect themselves from poison from the inside, from the outside. I mean, even right now, how many people do you think listening to this right now are wearing organic underwear?
No one.
So, and that means we are absorbing whatever's in there, whatever that is made of. And you know, think about that. That's just one thing, right? And how about the water?
Yes.
So let's say you have filtered water in your house, right? That you drink. What about when you take a shower? It's not filtered.
Yeah.
And it's got chlorine, and then it gets hot and it's steam. And so you breathe in that chlorine, or you sit on the toilet and the chlorine. So, I mean, everywhere we go. So
that's correct.
That's chronic inflammation. Anyway, so when you have chronic inflammation like for example, cancer or CFCs used to be called the wound that wouldn't heal. So in other words, the CFC at the beginning, when it first starts to have to ferment, it's stimulating all these growth, tissue proliferation, blood vessel growth, because that's how a wound heals. But it never heals, so it keeps doing it. So they call cancer the wound that wouldn't heal. And the reason it's not healed is because it keeps getting inflamed by living in the 21st century. Yeah. I don't know if I explained that too well, but
no, that is perfect. That is perfect. So, I mean, it's the inflammation that releases these oxidative, that's causing the oxidative stress, releasing the reactive oxygen species, and it's causing this wound not to be able to heal. So it's just going on and on. That's why you say chronically fermenting cells, because this wound cannot heal. Okay, that's perfect. So what are the physical, the chemical, infectious, biological, nutritional, or immunological factors that can cause the inflammation and oxidative stress that leads to chronically fermenting cells? So you've now discussed a couple of the physical ones, but let's get, or the chemical ones specifically when it comes to the chlorine and the underwear that is not organic. What are some of the physical contributions that can lead to inflammation and oxidative stress?
By physical, you mean I'm coming outside because I think we'll get
No
better reception.
problem.
Um,
No problem. That's great.
what you when you say physical, do you mean you don't mean chemical, right? You said you don't mean chemical. You
No,
mean
no,
what?
no. We can talk about chemicals next. I'm thinking about physical. So your physiological body, what is there that can contribute to these chronically fermenting cells? Is it just because of the imbalances? Let's talk about the mitochondria and what causes it to have a lack of oxygen or something like that, so that the cells cannot make the amount of energy that it needs.
Oh, okay. I gotta go inside. Sorry, I'm trying to find the best place here. Maybe this is
No
better.
problem.
Okay. All right. So mitochondria. All right. So wait. Whoops. Here's what happens. Am I okay? Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Um. Well, okay. If you think about it, we need 6 oxygens molecules and 1 glucose to go into the mitochondria to produce energy. All right. So if
Mm-hmm.
anything disturbs that, then we have a problem, right? And so many
Mm-hmm.
things disturb it. For example, if you're eating food like greasy food and all that, and your arteries are getting plugged up, and you start to have narrowing arteries, you're going to have decreased blood flow, and that decreased blood flow is going to decrease your oxygen availability. So that's going to put some
Okay.
stress on the mitochondria. Um, uh, the other thing is that we eat too much glucose.
Yeah.
Because we eat too much glucose, like a potato is glucose, rice is
Yes.
glucose, bread is glucose. So if we're eating too much of it, we've got too much of that and maybe not enough oxygen. So the cell is like trying to keep the glucose away. So one of the things the cell does immediately, and this is other than chronic inflammation, the other chronic condition that underlies all degenerative illnesses is the glucose and insulin dynamic. So what happens is,
Absolutely.
if there's too much glucose, the body's homeostatic response will be to become insulin resistant, to
Mm-hmm.
prevent too much glucose from coming in. So now here the cells are insulin resistant, meaning they're no longer being able to function normally. They're not getting quite enough oxygen because our arteries are plugged up, and maybe we live in an urban center where we're not getting a lot of oxygen, or enough oxygen. And so those are the problems that affect the mitochondria. But there are fundamentally, most of the toxins that we're exposed to damage the tissues, and they go after the most, just like we said before, the most vulnerable part of the cell of the body, of the cell, is the mitochondria. So they're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are always under attack, and they're the ones that go down first. And when they go down, we wind up getting even chronic fatigue syndrome, or any chronic, what do you call it? Infection. You have Lyme's. If you have anything like that, okay, it's going to diminish your mitochondrial function, and that happens almost everything. I mean, one of the most um, one symptom that we can attribute to almost every condition is a lack of energy. People say, oh,
Yeah.
I don't have any energy. I don't know. And it's energy, right? And so I'm not. I'm not. I guess I'm not sure of the question, so I'm having a hard time with the answer.
No, no, no. It's okay. It's fine. I'm just thinking of all the different aspects that can contribute to the formation of these chronically fermenting cells. So chemicals we've already touched on that we're living in a toxic world and so on. So let's maybe skip that, because I think that is a hot topic and everyone is quite aware of it. So let's talk about the infections. There is parasites, there's bacteria, there's viruses, and all of these kind of things that can contribute, that can weaken the body and put stress on the mitochondria and the entire system as well. So,
Right. And one thing we didn't mention, but in terms of physical out there, that's really affecting us, and
mm-hmm.
it's been a tremendous influence since around the early part of the 20th century, and that is electromagnetic frequencies, because we are electromagnetic beings, right?
Yeah,
That's what we are, and that's why if you ask me how your heart is, I'll listen to it, but then I'll do an EKG,
yeah,
and I'll look at the electrical output. And I
Yes.
can tell by the shape and the size and how close together they are. I can tell the health of your heart by its electronic fingerprint. And the same thing with your brain, an EEG, and the same thing with your muscles, an EMG, electromyograph. So the
Yes.
electrical output of your tissues is is kind of like a signature of your health. So, and when that line on the EKG is flat and there's no more electrons flowing, it's all over. So really,
Yeah.
and this is really a fundamental thing for people to keep in mind. The difference between a corpse and a living body is the fact that the living body is able to take things from the environment, uh, gases and nutrients, and turn it into energy and use that energy. The corpse can no longer do that. That means there's no flow. And when we talk about energy, we're talking about electricity. That's why I said the heart.
Yeah.
So the brain is an electromagnetic. In fact, if you looked at our magnetic field around our brain, it's about that big. But the electric field around our heart is even bigger. So we have the brain and heart, this big, incredible brain heart electrical magnetic uh, energy. It's just full of energy. So we get disturbed. We have external electricity coming in, and that will disturb our flow. Secondly, if we have metals in our mouth, which we do, we have even not even I'm not even talking about a mercury amalgam. If you got a gold inlay or a gold filling, gold is not pure in dentistry. It's an alloy. It's only about 30% gold. The rest is aluminum and other heavy metals. Now, when you have two metals,
To strengthen it.
two metals in together in a salt solution, saliva, you have what's called a battery. So you have a battery mouth, and that electrical charge, that is going to disturb again your electrical flow, because in the end, that's what we are, flow of electrons, and when they stop, you're
Yes.
dead. Now, when we were talking about oxidation a moment ago, what we mean by oxidation is something that oxidizes steals an electron, and something that reduces, or it's also called an antioxidant, it donates an electron. So we have to have equal. We have to have. It's like the electron is being handed off, right? And that's why in our blood we have electrolytes. So basically, it's the handoff. So that kind of chemistry is called redox biochemistry. Re for the reduction. Reduction is the real word for antioxidant, and then ox for oxidation. So it's called redox biochemistry, and that's what life is. Life is just exchanging electrons. So anything that disturbs that will cause problems. So again, EMF and now 5G and now 6G is greatly disturbing us. Another one is stress. When you get stressed, the fear response goes, and that stimulates your whole your adrenal glands to produce cortisol, which floods your body with sugar, and then you have adrenaline and all those things. So a chronically stressed person is going to have the same sort of situation. The other one is what's part of stress is we have an automatic nervous system and we have a voluntary nervous system. So the voluntary nervous system is moving your arms, walking, talking, like that. The autonomic nervous system is that part that digests, your heart's beating, all the things that are going on that you're not aware of. That's called the autonomic. And it's got two parts, a parasympathetic and a sympathetic. We all have heard those words. Sympathetic means run, fight, blah, blah. Parasympathetic means digest, assimilate, heal, right? So we are all, because of our weird society, in sympathetic overdrive. We don't have enough parasympathetic. And as a result, that sympathetic is causing the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. And so we're always like that. And what that does is it shunts the blood away from our organs into our muscles so that we can fight or run. And so we're not getting enough blood flow to our organs that need blood flow for health, and we're getting a lot over here. And so that's what happened. By the way, it also, during stress, it doesn't send as much blood to your frontal cortex, because think about it. If somebody walked in the room right now with a gun, you don't have time to think, should I go left or should I go right? No. You just
Exactly.
say it. You
You
just
make
have
a
to
decision, you
react.
just do it,
You just have to react.
you
So
react.
it turns that part off. And also at the moment of being afraid, your immune system is not that important. So your immune system gets shut down. Your thinking gets shut down. Your organs are not getting enough blood. So that's what stress does. So we're chronically stressed. So we have to learn how to undo that as well. And that's a major, major um, uh, uh, part of it. In fact, I can tell you something. When I first meet somebody that comes to our center, I can tell almost right away now how well they're going to do, just because, not by their chart. I don't care what's on the MRI. I don't care what's on the CAT scan. It's their mind, because their mind will either make them live or die, and that's how important the mind is. We can talk about that later, but yeah, those are the major ones: EMF, a toxic environment, and stress. You put those all together, and plus, our immune system has been systematically attacked, and that's what the EMF does. By the way, the EMF attacks our immune system, and so we all have. We don't have the immunity that we had in the year 1900. In the year 1900, we were strong, we were confident, we made most of the stuff we live with. We were probably well read. That's the kind of human being we were then. Now, we don't know anything. All we do is know how to shop and get online, right? But we don't know. If we were naked in the forest, we wouldn't know what to eat. We wouldn't know how to live.
Yes, true. Yeah.
We're no longer Earthlings.
Yeah, all of that
we're hybrid
information is lost. Yeah.
We're hybrid mutants. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So from the infectious side of things that can contribute, so would you care to speak a little bit about the contribution that parasites and bacteria and viruses can have?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really big subject, because Louis Pasteur came up with the idea. He didn't come up with it. He was the one that finally was the mouthpiece for the germ theory. And the germ theory says the germs are out there and they're going to get us, right? And so we got to protect ourselves from the germs. And so all of his experiments that he was working on, he sabotaged. He finally admitted it. There was another guy at that time. His name was Beauchamp. He was also French. And he said, it's not the bacteria, it's not the microorganisms, it's the environment, it's the milieu. And so finally, Louis Pasteur on his deathbed said, Beauchamp's right. It's not. And then another guy I want to tell you about, his name was Rudolf Virchow, German man, who in the 1850s, he became known as the father of pathology, because he used the microscope. He defined how to do autopsies. If you have a lymph node over here and you have CFC in your colon, it's called Virchow's node. I mean, and he invented a lot of words we use in medicine. So he was really probably one of the most, the foundation of pathology, which is considered the doctor's doctor. Anyway, he said that if he had his life to live over, he would devote it to proving that microorganisms didn't make the mess. They're there to clean it up. Just like the flies don't make the feces.
Yes.
They're there to clean it up. Yes. And so the question of the germ theory, do they exist or not? And there's been so many experiments to show that, for example, think about this. Suppose you buy some fruit and you live on the 30th floor of a condo, and you go up there, you buy the fruit, you put it away, and then you go away for the weekend, and you wind up staying 3 or 4 days. You come back and there are fruit flies. Where did the fruit flies? Did they take the elevator? Did they? How did they get there? Where did they come from? Right? They're there to clean up.
Yes.
That's what they're there. They're part of it.
Yes.
And we have to understand that. That's why when we die, the worms don't crawl into us; they crawl out of us.
Out of us.
But anyway,
yes.
So we have a relationship with microorganisms, and they provide us with everything we need. As you know, they recycle nitrogen, they recycle carbon, they recycle all the elements for life. So microorganisms do that, and they kind of morph and they change and they do what they need to do. and they'll clean up messes. So it's really the environment. And so what Virchow was talking about is he thinks something else is injuring the tissue, and the microorganisms are there to clean it up and fix it. That's how he saw it. So a guy named, he was also German, Robert Koch, I don't know how you say it. He said, look, if we're going to prove that something is infectious, it has to meet 4 criteria. First of all, you have to take it. Let's say I'm sick, I got it ready to go. You take out, you put it in a dish, you grow out the organism, you take that organism, you put it into a healthy person, they should get the same sickness, and then when they start producing this this mucus, you take out, and you should be able to grow the same organism. And if you do, then you have met Koch's postulates, and you can say, yes, that was the infectious agent. That's never been done.
Never happened.
Ever.
Okay.
Ever with viruses, right? And it's not been, and microorganisms, but it has been done with parasites. So parasites are different. Okay. That meets Koch's postulates. So, but here's this weird thing. I'm not saying that's all it is, because definitely if you have sepsis and you've got bacteria in your blood, I've got to give you antibiotics. I have to. Yeah. You know, I mean, so in other words, just because they're there to clean it up, they can still kill us, right? And so it doesn't mean, but anyway, I'm just trying to say that the germ theory actually morphed into the disease theory. So people think now there are diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, and they're going to get me, and I got to get rid of them. So that whole concept of the germs has become the disease. But there are no diseases. Remember I told you a moment ago that if I'm eating too much pasta, bread, potato, rice, and cake, and I have too much glucose, my body will flexibly, homeostatically become insulin resistant to protect it. That's not a disease. That's a homeostatic correct. And the same thing with high blood pressure, whatever it is, it's our body adapting. So these adaptive physiological processes we are naming as diseases, and they're not. What do we really need to do? We need to restore balance so that they don't need to adapt, right? So if I just stop eating, I could take diabetic medicine for the next 40 years and I'll still have the problem. But all I have to do is stop eating all that pasta, bread, potato, rice, and cake, and my body won't need to adapt. So that, I just wanted to put the germ theory into perspective. But parasites we're now finding are probably involved in everybody that's got CFCs, because we all have parasites. We all do. And,
yes, that's correct.
The difference, you can have a microorganism in you that it's good for them because they have a place to live, and it's good for you because they're making things you need. And that's like our gut biome. Okay. Yes. Right. And so we call that mutualistic relationship. Right. And then we have another relationship where they're benefiting, but we're not harming. We're not being harmed. Right. And then the third relationship is where they're benefiting and we're being harmed. And that's a parasite. Yeah. All right. Correct. So I think what in the 1900s, when we were strong and our immune systems were strong and there was no EMF, I think, which was at that point called a commensal organism, meaning no harm to us, has now become parasitic because our immune systems are so weak. So I think we're more and more prone, which is why it's very difficult to treat parasitic infections now with herbs like we used to. I think now we have to use these powerful drugs, unfortunately, just because our immune systems have been so weakened. So we know that parasites are involved in all of the CFCs, brain, breast, everywhere. So part of any kind of program where you want to get well because you found out you have chronically fermenting cells, one thing that you must definitely do is do a clean out the parasites. That's very important. So, but now one thing, the viruses don't exist, so they can't possibly exist, because a virus is a little piece of genetic material like RNA or DNA in a glycoprotein coat. That's all. It doesn't eat, it doesn't drink, it doesn't breathe, it doesn't have a metabolism, it doesn't have any waste, and it cannot have babies. So it's not alive. So that's why you can't kill it, because it's not alive. So it doesn't qualify as life. So then the question would have to come, how did it get there? How could genetic material get into the middle of a protein coat? How did that happen? Right? And so it doesn't make sense. Anyway, I won't go into it now because that's not what we're here to talk about. But I think there's something that we call exosomes. But anyway, the point is, do you know that, like, for example, the great hoax of 2020?
Yes.
Okay, you know, there was nothing there. There was no invisible enemy. It was all a hoax. It's just like HIV. There is
I
no
fully
HIV.
agree. Fully
So
agree.
viruses don't exist. So to answer your question, I think specifically is parasites. Yes, they can get into us and proliferate and become and cause problems.
So I have a
Yeah.
question. On a couple of other places that I follow and found some information, I've heard a lot of people speak about the fact that if somebody has these parasitic infections, it is because there is a lot of toxins. So you wouldn't have had these parasitic infestations if you didn't have this heavy toxic burden. Is that correct?
I think what's meant by that, I hope they mean this, is that this toxic burden is has already compromised your immune system to the point where you can't protect yourself from it. You know, like, in other words, it's compromised more. However, think about it. There are these parasites that live in the mud, and if you're walking or if you go to the river, they'll crawl in through your ankle into your blood, and they go up into your lungs, and then you go and you swallow them. They go into your intestines, and they start to proliferate, right? And so, yeah, yeah, sure. I think if you were a robust, healthy, 25-year-old, amazing person, maybe you wouldn't get infected. You would be able to fight it off. But yeah, I mean, that's true, because the weaker your immune system is, the less you're able to deal with anything. And so, you know, that's true. So, but where are you going to go? Where are you going to go on this planet and be healthy and strong and live in a natural life?
And not exactly, and not being exposed to these toxins, and and then specifically if you live in a city, that you have to look after yourself, because we are basically doomed with everything we are exposed to on a daily.
Exactly, everything, yeah, including each other, you know, because all of our social nonsense and all this stuff. Do you know? I know I'm off topic, but
no problem.
Do you know that in order to succeed in any society in the modern world, you have to be a good liar?
But then I'm not going to succeed.
And the better a liar you are, the more. That's why look at the celebrities, the actors. They can make you think they're somebody else, right? Yeah. And so, but anyway, it's true, because you have to learn to lie. You can't tell the truth, and that's a big problem. That's a big problem. So, yeah, it's toxic.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't prepared for that one. Okay, let's talk about nutritional deficiencies that can lead the body to suffer. And what is the most common nutritional deficiencies that can lead to chronically fermenting cells?
Well, if I was an alien and I came to Earth, and uh, and the mothership was up in the atmosphere, and they told me, find out what species those two-legged creatures are that are walking around. Find out what species they are. So I said, okay. So I went to all the different countries, and I looked at I went to all these different places at dinner time to see what people are eating. And if I went to every country, it doesn't matter where it is, at the end, I would have to call the mothership and say, I think they're canine. I think the species is canine. They're dogs. Because I see people eating dog food, not human food. Right? And so, and when I say dog food, I meat dead animals, and garbage.
Processed food
A dog is
and
a scavenger. A dog is.
yeah.
It's not like a cat. A cat is a obligate carnivore. It must eat an animal
Mm.
alive. It doesn't like to eat dead animals. So, if somebody tells you they're on a carnivore diet, you'll say, "Oh, really? Well, then here's a chicken. Let me see. Rip its head off and start eating it." They won't because they're not carnivores. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
don't say you're on a carnivore diet. Admit it. You're
Yeah.
on a corpse diet. You're on a corpse diet. Admit it.
On a corpse
Okay.
diet. Okay, yeah,
Okay.
fine, fair enough. Fair enough.
But anyway, so we're eating dog food, and our bodies were not
Okay.
designed for it. Our intestines are too long. I mean, we don't have the enzymes, all sorts of reasons like that. So most of us eat dog food, not only dog food, but we heat it up and cook it, and it's no longer chemically what it was. In
Mm.
chemistry, there are two
Yes.
kinds of reactions. There's a reaction called an endothermic chemical reaction,
Mm-hmm.
where the heat comes in to
Yes.
produce a chemical change, and there's an exothermic where heat is produced. So you pour this chemical, and it blows up. That's exothermic. So
Mm-hmm.
endothermic is where you're in chemistry lab, you have a Bunsen burner, and you got your beaker, you're putting heat in, and it
Mm-hmm.
causes the chemicals to react. That's what cooking is.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking is a
Mm-hmm.
chemical reaction. All right, and it causes new chemicals. So if I did a chemical analysis on what you bring into the kitchen, and then I did a chemical analysis on what you take out of the kitchen to serve to your family, they're two
Mm-hmm.
different things. And since it's no longer the tomato that nature produced, it's tomato sauce, it's no longer
Mm.
natural, and therefore it's
Mm.
called artificial. And so you feed the artificial substance to the body, and what is it going to do? What's the first thing it's going to do? It's going to protect itself by becoming inflamed, and it develops an inflammatory response. And so way back in the 1930s, there was a doctor in Klochikov was his name, I think, in Switzerland, and he did a blood test on people eating salads versus people eating cooked meals, and he just wanted to see what happens to the white blood cells. And when they ate
Mm-hmm.
cooked food, it went up. They had it was called leukocytosis. They had an inflammatory response from eating the cooked food. So if I had to think, think about it. The so what I'm saying is, when we talk about what is the most common nutrient deficiencies, number one, we're not getting enough of what our bodies were designed for, which is plants.
Yeah.
We're not getting enough of that. Also, because the soils are depleted and we're growing only with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, so they
Mm-hmm.
grow quick. The soil doesn't have minerals, so we have mineral deficiencies, and we're not getting the appropriate plant food, and so we're in big trouble. The reason you need a mineral is because, like calcium, magnesium, iron, all of these things, they have a positive charge. If you look at their chemical thing,
Mm-hmm.
like calcium is Ca with 2 plus,
Yes.
right? Iron is Fe 2 plus. Okay. They Because they have a plus, they need electrons, so they carry electrons, right? That's what they
Okay.
do, and so um, that's why, for example, if I eat a lemon is acidic, right? It's citric acid, it's acidic,
Mm.
but because it's got all these minerals in it, when it gets to my tissues, they pull in electrons, and it winds up alkalinizing my tissues. So even
Mm.
though it is acidic, the reaction in my body is that it's alkalinizing, and it produces alkalinity, right? Which is
Correct.
healthy, and that's what we need, right? So anyway, we are very acidic because we're not getting enough minerals. We're not getting enough real plant food. Everything we're eating is dead. By the way, we were talking a moment ago about energy, right? Life is energy. When you run out of energy, it's over. So if that's true, that means we're eating basically for energy. So how much energy can you get from a corpse? Not a lot.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean,
Now,
raw food is living food.
right, and then not even animals. If I have have you ever heard of a potato clock?
Potato clock? No,
Yeah. Well, they get a
no.
clock, and it's got two electrodes that you plug it into a potato, two potatoes,
Oh,
and it works,
yes. Okay.
right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now I've seen where they light the light bulb.
Yeah, right. Because because they're alive, they have a bioelectric charge.
Yes.
So, do you think if I baked the potato that the clock would work?
Yeah, no.
Right. So now it's a potato corpse. So I mean, we don't only eat animal corpses, we eat potato corpses too. So we eat dead things. And when you eat dead things,
Okay.
it's hard to get a lot of energy. So what do? You got to eat a lot. So we overeat
Okay.
all this dead food. And anyway, so our nutritional deficiencies are vast,
Yes, I
and
agree.
one main problem is our our ability to detoxify and clean is diminished because, for example, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, all of the cruciferous vegetables,
Yes.
they have, uh, if they're crushed up in their raw state, they produce a chemical which, when it goes to your liver, it stimulates what's called phase 2 detoxification, which
Correct.
allows you to get rid of things. So we're not
Mm-hmm.
eating a lot of that. So we have phase 1 detox here and phase 2. So what happens? Food comes in, it gets halfway produced, and there are these biochemical intermediates that are extremely toxic, and they hang around in our body. If phase 2 was high, we would get rid of it. That's why people
Mm-hmm.
do coffee enemas. Coffee enemas are trying to raise that phase 2. But
Yes.
the king of phase 2 is cruciferous vegetables, uh, broccoli, cauliflower, all that sort of thing. But you got to eat them raw.
Okay. And for the people that says that they have thyroid issues, they can't eat it raw, would steamed be okay? Lightly steamed?
Well, um, here, yeah, here's the thing. Um, remember, we mentioned that the body has all these enzymes, and I just want to give you a picture of what's going on in here, because this is this you want to have a miracle. You want to understand a miracle. We have 30, like I said before, 36 sextillion chemical reactions every second.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of them is mediated by an enzyme. All right. Now,
Correct.
enzymes are proteins,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which means amino acids. All right.
Yes.
So, in order for a protein to do its job, it has to have a certain shape.
Okay.
Okay, so it's got a primary structure, which is the amino acid sequence. It's got a
Mm-hmm.
secondary structure, which is how it folds. And then the tertiary structure is its three-dimensional structure. And what
Okay.
determines the three-dimensional structure of an enzyme or any protein is the pH and the temperature. Those are the two physical uh, 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 aspects that determine the shape of a three-dimensional molecule. So every molecule, every enzyme has an optimal pH and an optimal temperature at which it works the best. So
Okay.
all the cells in our body have an optimal temperature of 37 degrees centigrade.
Mm-hmm.
That's the temperature at which they function best. And the pH varies. In the stomach, it's low, and over here, so it varies. The pH in each place, it varies.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you get a fever, the reason you're getting a fever is because the white blood cells, they function best at about 40.5, 41. So when they get up there, then they're working best. So
They're
that's why
working
we
at
get
their
a fever.
best.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
a fever is not an indication of a paracetamol deficiency. A
Of
fever
course.
is a fever. A fever is your body recruiting all these white blood cells. All right. So anyway,
Excellent.
now 37 degrees centigrade is our enzymes are working perfectly. If they go up to 49, they stop. They lose their shape forever. And
Mm.
if they lose their shape forever, they're no longer functional. All right. So now, if I steam something, I'm steaming it at 100 degrees centigrade.
Fair enough.
So I've lost the shape. So I've lost the enzymes. So
Yeah.
I haven't cooked it with baking it, grilling it, frying it. So I haven't added what they call Maillard chemicals, which
Mm-hmm.
are other reactions. I've just killed it. So I'm eating dead food. So yeah, it's
Okay.
it's better than eating fried, but it's still dead. And what does that mean? That means when it gets into your stomach, it won't auto digest. So when it arrives at the pancreas has to do all of the work,
Yes,
instead of only about 40%, because it should have if I eat an apple, it's going to auto digest. By the time it gets over here, my pancreas only has maybe 50-60% to work on. But if I'm eating all the food I eat has no enzymes, my pancreas is working hard. And what happens when an organ works hard? It gets bigger, right?
Okay.
Right? That's why we go to the gym. We go to the gym so we can get bigger. It's called hypertrophy. But you don't want an enlarged heart. You don't want an enlarged thyroid. And you don't want an enlarged pancreas. But the more cooked food you eat, the larger you're going to be your pancreas, because it's working too hard. So that's the answer to steamed food. Yeah, it's better than non, but also remember, like with cruciferous vegetables, in order to get the benefit, you have to bite it and crush it so that the enzyme in this cell combines with this. Yeah, and that way you get the chemical you want. But if you've already heated it up, that enzyme is dead. Now you won't get that reaction. So that's why what I say to people, what you can do every day is, you won't eat raw broccoli and raw cabbage. So get 2 handfuls of broccoli sprouts, put them in a nut milk, right? And also add 3 tablespoons of freshly ground flaxseed. Put strawberries, whatever you want, and that way you'll get all of the good medicine that you need from that food. So then you can eat the steamed broccoli, right? So, yeah. But
okay, so in your opinion, then a raw food diet is the best in order to protect one's body and to keep it healthy.
Well, yeah, but see how the way you asked that, we're using words that are in the paradigm of that. So I want to turn that around. When I hear the word raw, I think painful, right? Raw sounds painful, right? Like, for example, if I was overweight and when I walked, my legs rubbed together, they would get raw in the middle, right? Anyway, raw sounds painful. So what I like to call this kind of food is real food. And the reason I call it real is because the earth makes it. And the earth makes tomato sauce.
Yes.
Right? Do to the food, it's no longer real. It's been altered. It's called artificial. And so, anyway, so do I think people should eat raw food, real food? Yes, because all creatures on the planet, that's how they eat. They don't cook, right? Did you ever wonder why humans started cooking? You ever wonder why we started cooking?
Oh, I've never thought of that. I've never thought of that.
Well, since we come from the tropics and subtropics, think about it. Everything in the tropics is growing. You've got plenty of vegetation and water and everything like that. And so you just pick it and eat it, right? And you wouldn't think of adding fire to it. It doesn't make any sense. But if you start migrating and you get up to places where it's cold and there's no more plants, and now you have to eat dead animals, I don't want to eat that corpse. So you fry it, you put sauce on it, and you make flavor at it. You change the name, right? Like in English, we say it's pork chops, it's sausage, it's bacon. No, it's dead pig. But anyway, I'm just saying. I think that because we started to eat flesh, we started cooking, right? You're not going to cook an apple. You wouldn't think about it, right? Anyway, that's why I think it.
Well, the Germans do. The Germans do. They love making this apple tart thing, and it's cooking the whole apple and then add some cinnamon and stuff. So yeah, the Germans do.
No, I know.
But I'm not German. I just live here.
Where are you from?
I'm from South Africa.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Good, yeah. But the German, you know what? The Germans also eat. I was reading some studies on vitamin C, ascorbate, right?
Yes.
Right? And we have a certain amount we need to function, which is about 50 millimoles per liter, so of ascorbate when we're fasting. And so if you get down to about 23, that means you're deficient. If you get down to 7 or 8, that means you're going to get scurvy, end stage scurvy. So they did a big study, like 100,000, 200,000 Germans. 40% were
I'm not surprised.
40%.
I'm not surprised.
urge. Yeah. So, but I
Uh,
think, I'll bet the same thing would be with Americans. I mean,
yeah,
Americans don't eat food. They don't eat food. So
yeah,
listen, let me help people understand something. Let's define food very simply as that which you ingest
mm,
can be turned into
mm.
flesh, blood, or energy. And let's define
That's a good
poison
description.
poison as that which when you ingest must be eliminated.
Correct.
It's easy. I mean, real simple, real simple. So therefore, nothing is a pure food. Even an organic Fuji apple, there'll be some stuff I can't deal with, and it'll come out as waste. So there's
Mm,
no perfect food, right? So I don't look at
okay.
good or bad or anything like that. It's just less waste. Anyway, so that's how we should look at food. So also the other problem with humans, and I'm sorry I'm getting off track here, but the other problem with humans is that we don't have instinct. We lost our instinct.
Mm,
All other animals, all other creatures on the planet operate under the auspices of instinct, right? And that's how the baby spider within a week can spin a web the first time perfectly. Perfect.
wow.
A guy with a PhD in engineering would say, "Wow," and then a baby bird, first time, joins the flock and turns perfectly. Didn't go to aviation academy, didn't study at all. Okay,
True.
perfectly. That's instinct. So instinct is the divine web by which all creatures are connected to the divine intelligence. That's just what
Mm,
it is. All creatures know what to do. They don't have to learn it. Like horses don't discuss what's the best food to eat. And by the way, horses have 11 or 12 different blood types, blood groups, but they all eat alfalfa and grass. I don't see any horses eating hamburgers. So that whole thing about the blood type
yes, thank you for
made
mentioning that.
made someone a lot of money. Dogs have 8 blood types, but dogs eat pretty much what dogs eat. So that's all
Uh-huh.
not. So we're the only ones that don't
Yes,
know
I
what to eat.
agree.
We don't know what to eat.
Yes,
But
yes.
but
I think
you
our
can't.
innate intelligence is completely lost, and we just go
None.
on with,
No, because we're enculturated. Because when you're
yes,
young, before you can even learn to speak, your parents tell you 3 things: no, stop, don't.
yeah,
No, stop, don't. And so your mother is saying to you, your instincts are not acceptable.
that's good.
I want you to do this. So we're enculturated. So we
Mhm.
become enculturated. And that's, you become a good German, you become a good South African, you become a good American, you become a good Chinese, whatever. But and it's only by the culture. And that's also, think about it, the centerpiece of every culture is the cuisine,
Yes.
right? And that, like Italy. Are you going to go to Italy and not eat pasta? Of course not. Why go to Italy? You got to eat pasta. So, I mean, that's
And
how
gelato.
yeah, and pizza. I mean, whatever we think about that. So, yeah. But anyway, you cannot get a dog to eat horse food, and you cannot get a
Yeah.
horse to eat dog food. They won't.
Mhm.
They'll die first. So because they're under instinct.
Yeah.
And so since our parents said no, 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 we we lost our ability to access our instinct. We don't know what it is anymore. And now all of our responses, all of our habits are cultural. We've learned it.
Mm.
We've learned how to do it, and we don't know what instinct is anymore. That's why in China there are some villages when if I'm talking to them about changing their diet, they're going to say to me, "What? No more live monkey brain? Are you kidding me? I don't think life is worth living if I can't eat a monkey brain
Mhm.
at least once a month." Right? So in other words, yeah.
Yeah. I think my husband went to one or other a meeting where they were offered something really exotic, and the people were offended when he said, "No, sorry, I can't." So yeah, it's definitely a cultural difference that there's people they eat that and they have that things, and we definitely are cultured, and you are trained to do certain things a certain way. And I think the moment when it comes to when you're trying to focus on your health and what your body needs. It's such a big mind change that the people need to go through, and they find it so difficult. And like you said earlier, that you can already see who are the people that come into the clinic that's going to make it or not make it, because you can see the mindset.
Yeah.
And so it makes mindset is key into healthy living. So that is a great point. So
Exactly.
one
And
thing
then
I wanted to ask about.
go ahead.
No. Continue.
I forgot what I was going to say. Okay. Man, it'll come to me later. Go ahead.
No, no worries. Okay, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to nutritional deficiencies, the role of vitamin D in chronically fermenting cells. Can you speak on that for us? Because what I've seen is that in most people that have these experiences, their vitamin D seems to be very low.
Mm, mm. Very, very true. So okay, vitamin D, vitamin A, and vitamin C are very low in all malignant tissue. All right. And just to backtrack for a second, ascorbate, which we call vitamin C, all creatures, even microorganisms like phytoplankton and all that, they all make it.
Yeah.
Fish, amphibians, birds, reptiles, and all the mammals make it. Dogs make it. Horses make it. Gorillas make it. I mean, elephants make it. The only ones that don't make it are the primates, humans, guinea pigs, and fruit bats. And that's because we're supposed to be getting it in our diet. And so nature is not going to duplicate something that already is available. So you're not going to make something that's already there. That's what. So we don't have the enzyme, right? So that's why it's called a vitamin. So so that's it. So we should have a high amount of it, and we don't. So very, very low. And the lower it is, the more likely you're going to get CFCs. Vitamin D is, even though it's called a vitamin, it's actually more like a hormone. It's made from cholesterol, and so when the sun hits the skin, it converts the cholesterol into vitamin D, right? And then, so that kind of tells you something. That kind of corroborates the fact that humans originated and should be our natural habitat, our natural biological niche is around the equatorial zones and subequatorial zones.
Yeah.
And that's where, because anywhere you'll see chimpanzees and gorillas, that's probably the same area that we would have been in, because they're the closest to what we are. And I don't see any chimpanzees in the forest of Germany or Idaho or Oregon. Yeah, I mean, so I'm just saying. So
I
humans
think I
belong.
need to go back to South Africa. We can see them
Yeah,
there.
exactly. But that's where we that's where we originated. So in that environment, we'd be getting a lot of sun, and that would be making
Yeah,
the
it's true.
vitamin D. And the reason vitamin D is so important for immunity is because once it's converted into vitamin D from the sun, the cholesterol is converted, it has to be carried. It's carried by a molecule produced in the liver.
Yep.
It's called a vitamin D binding globulin. Okay. So it grabs it and it carries it around. Now, this binding globulin for vitamin D has another function. When it drops off the vitamin D where it's going, it activates macrophages. And macrophages are pivotal in our immune system. So the only reason your liver will make the binding protein is if you have it will only make enough for the vitamin D. So if your vitamin D is low, you'll only be making a little bit. You won't be activating your macrophages. If your vitamin D is high, you'll be activating your macrophages. So that's how it affects the immunity directly. And the macrophages, by the way, are the bridge between the innate and the adaptive immune system, right? And so in order to get rid of CFCs, you've got to activate the adaptive immune system. But if your macrophages are low because you don't have enough vitamin D, you won't be able to do that, and you won't be able to. So that's the whole thing. Same with vitamin A. Vitamin A is also necessary for the immune system. So those three, and we don't get enough of it in our diets, and we don't get enough minerals. We don't have enough zinc. We don't have enough selenium. We don't have enough molybdenum. We don't have enough manganese. We don't have all those things, and so all of our enzymes don't have the batteries, because if you think of minerals as the batteries of enzymes, they keep them going, right? And we've replaced them with metals like aluminum, lead, uranium, so those, we've got that, but we don't have the nutrients. So we've got some, what the miracle is? That we make it to 20. That we make it to 20
I hear
years
you.
old. Considering how we're so, look at where you're sitting right now. You're sitting in a box, right?
Yeah.
And when you leave, you're going to get into a motorized box, and you'll go to another box, and you'll be in that box. You realize our lives are so far away from the way we were designed to live. We were designed to live in nature. I mean, when we go into the forest, when we go to the ocean and we go into the forest, our brain waves go into alpha. Alpha is where you try to get to when you're meditating, and it's a much, but we're always here. So so we live artificial lives, and our bodies are always adapting, and we're never going to be happy. If your feet don't touch the ground with no shoes, you're not going to get the benefit of all those electrons from the earth. I mean, we're just out of touch. So basically, so if you've got CFCs, listen to this. Since our bodies, we've got certain groups, let's say it's breast, ovarian, colon, it doesn't matter where it is, because it's the same process. The process is chronically fermenting cells. The only difference is the location. And it's the location that is the difference. So for example, if it's in the breast and it grows 3 centimeters, it's still stage 2. But if it's in the pancreas and it grows 1 centimeter, it's already into the bile duct and causing problems in your stage 4. So it's location. It's not necessarily that it's more aggressive. It's just the location. If it's in the brain and it grows, you're in trouble. So it depends. The other part about the location is what are the original cells in that organ doing. So for example, liver cells act very differently than kidney cells, which act very differently than heart cells. So those are the differences. The organ, the location, but not the process. The process is chronically fermenting cells. And the reason that's important for all of us to understand is because they're going to tell you, those witches and warlocks in the House of Horrors that wear the long white capes called doctors, they're going to tell you, you've got a very rare type of cancer. There's no type. There's location. It's all chronically fermenting cells. Because what defines CFCs scientifically, medically, it's called the Warburg effect. It's called aerobic glycolysis. That is CFCs. Nothing else. There's no genetic component. Nothing. It's a Warburg. So if you have Warburg or aerobic glycolysis going on, you've got CFCs. I don't care where it is. So, but you don't have a rare type. There are no types. There's only one type. It's called CFCs. And the reason they're doing it is because they've been overwhelmed with toxins, number one. And number two, the immune system has been suppressed. So what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of the toxins and improve the immune system. And it's really that simple. Get rid of the toxins and wake up the immune system. And if you do that, it's going to get better. So that's fundamentally what we're going to do. And when you know that, you can say, okay, there's a strategy and it'll work. So, gosh, let me do that, and then you learn how to do that. You just have to learn how to do that. I know what I was going to say before. You were mentioning the mind, and the what was it again? I keep losing that thought. Oh well, maybe I shouldn't say it today.
It's okay.
It'll come to me again. But anyway, fundamentally, the cells are fermenting as an adaptive response. So therefore, just like diabetes, my cells are insulin resistant because there's too much sugar. Okay, stop eating it, sugar, and they won't need to adapt. Same thing with the CFCs. Okay, that means get rid of all toxins. Start with the mouth, because we have all of these. And going back to infections, what happens is when you take out and you give a root canal, or you take out a tooth, you extract a tooth incorrectly, you wind up getting the microorganisms crawl up in there, and they produce, they have like a little cave, it's called a cavitation, and it starts producing toxins. and those toxins
Yes.
can affect things along the meridian. And so, I'll give you an example. I had a woman who had right-sided inflammatory breast CFCs, and I was in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and she was going to go to Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital for a clinical trial because inflammatory breast is very, very rapid. It works, it's aggressive. I said to her, a clinical trial means an experiment. She goes, I know, but I said, okay. So I examined her and I found out she had a root canal on her breast meridian. I said,
Yeah.
well, listen, before you go, you got to take care of this. And I had to send it to a biological dentist. They took it out.
Mm-hmm.
They irrigated it
Yes.
with ozonated water, put ozone gas, took the blood out, spun it. They got the platelet-rich fibrin to seal it off. So 6 weeks
Mm-hmm.
later, she went to Sloan Kettering to start, and they said, I'm sorry, you're no longer eligible for the trial.
Awesome.
She didn't
Awesome.
have CFC. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's how direct it is. So everybody has to understand the mouth never left the body. It's really part of the body.
Yes.
And we have to
Yes.
realize that it has a very profound effect on it. So if you've had any
Yes.
extractions, by a regular dentist, then you probably have a cavitation. And if you have any root canals or you have any metal, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
eating a lot of carbohydrates, you have the wrong bacteria. So in other words, the mouth is the first thing you got to take a look at. And,
Yes,
and, and that's part of your
my understanding is specifically for women with breast cancer, when it is like, for instance, related to root canals or something like that, it is the connection with the lymphatic system, which carries the bacteria or the microorganisms that is in those cavities down into the breasts, and then they populate there and cause the chronically fermenting cells. Is that accurate, or is that just a theory?
no, that's part of it because indeed all of the lymphatics in the mouth do drain down into the
Mm-hmm.
lymphatics because they're all going into the thoracic duct. So all the
Yes.
lymphatics are going to go there. So yes, that's true. However, the meridians, the energy meridians, are like circuits in a house. If your bedroom light, your bathroom light, and your kitchen light went out, and then you found that
Mm-hmm.
one fuse, you put it in, they all come on. That's a circuit. So
Yeah.
when our bodies are forming in the embryo, it all goes up to our teeth because our teeth, your bite called the occlusion, actually sits
Mm-hmm.
at the top of your spinal cord. It functions as the top cervical vertebra. It's actually like C1. And if it's off,
Okay.
your entire spinal cord is off. So the bite is very important. But anyway, all of the circuits come through there and they're connected. So the Chinese knew about this 5,000 years ago, right? And so, like,
Okay.
for example, the gallbladder and all, some of these circuits are weird. They're not just lymphatics, but lymphatics have
Okay.
play a very important role in it. But what's interesting is that the thyroid and breast and stomach are on the same meridian. And
Okay.
so most women with breast CFCs, not most, all have thyroid problems too. They may not know it. And the another interesting thing about the breast and the thyroid is they're the only two organs in the body who have what are called sodium iodide transporter systems. So they can extract iodine
Mm-hmm.
from the blood. So the thyroid needs to do it to make thyroid hormone, but the
Mm-hmm.
breasts are needed because so when a woman is pregnant, her breasts are actually extracting more iodine than the thyroid because the baby will need it so that it has thyroid hormone because without enough thyroid and iodine, you get what's called cretinism, where the baby is retarded. It has mental
Mm-hmm.
problems. So anyway, breast. So they're on the same meridian, and they're very very close. So and then that just reminds me, you've got it. The other thing is, I just want to talk for a moment real quickly. You got to get rid of all the toxins, starting with the mouth, do colon cleanses and juice cleanse. There's a whole thing with cleansing,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to balance the hormone systems. You have to bring them into balance because estrogen's not bad. There's not like a good
Mm-hmm.
estrogen and a bad estrogen. They're both
Mm-hmm.
necessary. It's just got out of balance, right? So
Yeah.
there's nothing good or bad in our body. If our body's making it, it was necessary. It's just out of balance.
Exactly.
When it gets out of balance is when you have to adapt. So
Agree.
basically, restore the balance of your immune system, get rid of the toxins. I mean, of your hormone system, get rid of the toxins, restore the integrity of your gut with all the healthy microbiome, eating right, all that stuff, restore the balance of your immune system, and then learn to shut up, and you'll heal. That's it, because you can't figure out how to do it. For example, you've heard about ketogenic diets, right?
Yeah.
You're going to go on a keto diet, and that's going to cure you.
I'm
Well,
good.
if you successfully eliminated all the glucose from your body, you'd be dead. And I can tell
Yes,
you that
that's true.
with 100% certainty, because I lead people on prolonged fasts. Usually, if they have CFCs, they fast for 41 days on water. Okay,
Wow.
it takes 41 days for the tumors to resolve. Now,
Wow.
why is it on day 41 when we do a finger stick, the glucose is normal? How could
Because
that
the
be?
liver makes its own.
Because we need it. Our
Yes.
body will make it.
Yeah.
Right? So just
Yeah.
that. So the point I'm trying to make is you can't. And you say, well, you know what? Also, CFCs need glutamine, because glutamine's the second fuel, right? Glucose and
Mm-hmm.
glutamine. So let's starve it of glucose and let's starve it of glutamine. Well, glutamine is also the primary fuel source for your lymphocytes, which kill the CFCs. So if they're not getting fed, you're not going to kill the CFCs. It's also the primary fuel source for your the cells that line your small intestine. So you won't be able to absorb and digest food. So you can't get rid of glutamine. You can't get rid of the glucose. So here's what you have to realize is that you'll never figure it out. 36 sextillion chemical reactions every second. You're not going to figure it out. Here's what you do. You bring and restore balance. And once you restore balance, the divine intelligence which made this will ensure that it works. You can't fix it. You can't, like, if I try to starve the cancer cells, the CFCs, I'm also starving the healthy, because the healthy cells need it too. You can't selectively starve the CFCs, right? And the reason that's important to do, because people get misled. So the idea is this: restore balance and eat human food. Eat human food. Restore balance. Go to sleep with the sun. When the sun goes down, you sleep. That's our natural. We're diurnal creatures, and we do that, our body heals. And move around all day, because if we were in a natural world, we would be lifting and bending and twisting all day long. So move around, go to sleep early, eat real food, and be in nature, and then your body will have all of its biological, psychological, and spiritual needs met, so you won't need to adapt with disease. Adaptations are, you won't develop the requirement to adapt, right? So it's fundamentally, it's simple, but it's hard to do, like you said, in the city, and you've got your habits, and and people say, oh, how can I change? And and that's the problem. And that's why God gave us pain and suffering, because only with pain and suffering will we change. Otherwise, we're not going to change.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
smart.
It motivates.
Right.
It motivates the change.
Right. We have to
Yeah.
yeah. That's the only. So that's why we have pain and suffering. So when you get pain and suffering, realize it's a blessing. Your body's talking to you. It's telling you have to make some change. And then if you do those changes, you're fine. So it's a different way of looking at it.
I have something in my mind that I would love to ask you. Pediatric cancers, babies, toddlers, young ones. Is it all the same toxins, maybe even vaccinations, or these kind of things that contribute to the chronically fermenting cells, or is there in pediatric cancers a different thing? Because I've had a neighbor when I lived in the Middle East, and her son had I think leukemia when he was, I think, 1.5, 2 years old. How does these type of cancers or chronically fermenting cells, how do they start in the young children when, I don't know, they run around, they go outside to play?
Right, and they haven't been around. You would think, well, they haven't been around long enough to accumulate too many toxins. So how did it happen, right? And
Yeah.
there's a very kind of sardonic expression that the best way for a woman to detox is to get pregnant.
Ouch.
All right, so
Yeah.
that way, so if you want to have a baby, spend a year cleansing your body, and make your husband cleanse. Do a year of
Yes.
eating healthy, fat, colonics. Cleanse yourselves, then get pregnant, and that way, because the babies are poisoned before they even get a chance to get out of there, before they're even born, and nowadays, what we're finding is that the amount of chemicals in breast milk, the amount of chemicals in the amniotic fluid is incredible. I don't even know how babies are even born anymore. But all of these, so they're poisoned before they ever get out. That's the problem. Now they're born. Now think about it. Now they're born. They pull them out. The first thing you get is, instead of giving you a nice little rub and say welcome to life, it's bam, and you cry, and that's what, welcome to planet Earth. And then they put you over there on the side. They put stuff in your eye. They give you a shot, and then they want to give you hepatitis B vaccine on before you leave to a newborn. Now, the two risk factors for getting hepatitis B if viruses did exist.
No, not really.
Sharing needles, and unprotected sex. Come on.
Okay.
These are newborns.
So babies are disqualified.
Yeah. So we did that to them. So before they get out of the hospital, they've been shot, they did all that stuff, and they had poison. So yeah, they're getting these and a lot of women are using formulas, and who knows what's in those formulas, right? I mean, I don't know, especially if Monsanto or Bill Gates has anything to do with it. I'm sure it's got graphene oxide and stuff in it. But yeah, so these poor kids are poisoned already, and their immune system hasn't yet had a
From the
chance to
womb.
develop, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's tragic. It's tragic.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. It's something I was just wondering, because I hear that pediatric cancers and stuff is on the rise, and all the diseases amongst the children is on the rise. And obviously, I mean, if we look at from our perspective, we see the toxins, and we see in the environmental, and we see, everything that just contributes. But sometimes you just wonder, is that the exact same process that is affecting these kids? But then you say also, okay, the immune systems aren't fully developed yet, or it's not
Right.
mature yet. So that also obviously plays a
And if
role for the kids.
if you didn't have a vaginal delivery, that's a big problem too. Because if it was a C-section, because when it comes through the vagina, it gets all the bacteria that needs, the microorganisms. That's an important part of it. And then secondly, breastfeeding. There's so much, not only the nutrients and the passive immunity that you get from the breast milk, but also the relationship with the mother, the skin to skin. That relationship is essential for your mind, for your ability, because the degree to which you are loved is the degree to which you will have self-confidence to go out in the world and make it. So love becomes self-confidence, and you need that to go out and love. And so I think the two gifts that all parents should give to their children is, of course, love, and secondly, health. And the way you give your child health is by not giving it bad habits that it has to break. So so it won't get sick, but if it were to get sick, it's So if you didn't feed your child anything cooked, and it only ate uncooked raw organic food up till the age of 6, you could say, okay, eat whatever you want. Even if it went and ate a pizza or whatever people love, it might be okay, but when they got home, they said, I need a carrot. Give me some lettuce, or give me a cucumber. So that, that would be the two best: love and no bad habits. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's see what's the next question. Okay, so I think we kind of already covered this question already. What can we do at home to prevent oxidative stress and cancer? Or if somebody who's listening had cancer or has cancer, what can they do to reduce inflammation, oxidative stress, to stop or slow down the fermenting cells? I think we've kind of already touched on that through our discussion, detox, lower the toxins, and eat whole foods, real food.
Yeah, and
Anything else that you would like to add?
well, I mean, going to bed early. If 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 you said if you wanted to say, okay, look, I've got to change my whole life, and it sounds so complicated. What's the first thing I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Go to bed early. You go to bed early, and your life will change. I want you to think of today as having started last night. Okay, so tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
begins tonight. So when you get into bed, it's like you're getting into the train. So if you're getting in bed at 11 or 12, then you're getting in the A train. If you're getting to bed at 8, you're getting on the other train. Wherever that train's going, you're going to wind up. The reason I say that is because we're diurnal and we have 90-minute sleep cycles, and there's two kinds of sleep. There's restorative sleep and there's dream sleep. And both of them are one is to restore the body, and the dreams are to restore the mind. And so at the beginning of the evening, about 80% of that 90-minute cycle is restorative sleep, and 20% is
Mm-hmm.
dream.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get to the reset point, which is around 12:30 a.m. or 1 a.m., then it switches. And now the majority is dream and just a little bit of restorative. So if you went to bed at 11 and you woke up at 7, that's 8 hours. But you got only maybe
Mm-hmm.
one or a half a cycle of restorative. So you had lots of
Mm-hmm.
dreams, so you don't hate everybody, but you haven't restored all the wear and tear. And you do that for a week, a month, a decade, 2 decades, and what'll happen is you're going to wind up aging quickly. So we have a very successful premature aging program here in the West, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because we look at the Hunzas, the women are delivering children at 65, and the men are getting them pregnant at 110 without Viagra. So, in other words,
Well done.
we've really pulled up, we've shortened,
Yeah.
so they're not going into menopause till late 60s, right? Because
Well,
that would be natural if you're living a natural life. So in other words,
yeah.
and that's just the way it is. But anyway, going to sleep early. So the reason it's so important is because of that. So you fully restore your body. Try it for a week, and you will see what I mean. There's no way to explain it. But one of the things that comes about when you go to bed early and you sleep, you'll wake up naturally around 4. That gives you time. What you can do between 4 and 7 would have taken you 8 to 10 hours at night. You couldn't have done it because you're going to be sharp and clear. But if you do that, something else is going to arise in you. And the only word I can the only expression I can think of to define that is what we call willpower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because there's not a cigarette smoker alive that doesn't know they need to stop smoking. There's not an alcoholic who doesn't know they need to stop drinking. And there's not an obese
Mm-hmm.
person that doesn't know they need to cool it on their eating. Why don't they do it? Okay, now, if you go to bed early, you're going to feel so incredible, so fantastic that when you look at something like you're driving by and you see whatever used to tempt you, I don't know, donut or McDonald's, whatever it is, you're going to just say, no, no way. I feel too. So it gives you the ability to do all the other stuff you already really know what to do. You already know that. But even if you have to learn it, but if you haven't, if you went to bed and you didn't have enough sleep and you're on your 5th cup of coffee and you're driving by that McDonald's, you're going to say, what the hell? And you're going to do it. And so if you want, the first thing you need to do is start going to bed early. Second thing you need to start doing is stop eating 3 to 5 hours before you go to sleep, so that when you are sleeping, your body will be able to restore itself. If you're eating,
Mm-hmm.
if you've just eaten within an hour or two, your body will be absorbing and it will be assimilating and it won't be repairing. Okay, so you have
We'll be
to,
working.
if you're 30 or younger, 3 hours, 40, 4 hours, 50 to about 65, 5 hours. After that, 6 hours. Before you go to sleep, you stop eating so that you're no longer absorbing and you'll really get what's called autophagy. And your body will clean it
Mm-hmm.
up. It'll clean itself. It'll
Mm-hmm.
restore itself. You do that and you'll find out your mind is clear. Everything gets better. I mean, everything gets better. So, and you got it. I can't tell you how profound it is, but that's the number one most important thing you can start doing. And then eating human food. I don't know. I don't like it. You know, we're all like, I want, you know. So
Yeah, well done. Well done. Okay, we're coming close to the end. I want to ask you, what therapies would you recommend for people to look in to support their healing if they are currently struggling with chronically fermenting cells?
sure. So first of all, remember how important it is to take your mouth and get rid of the toxins, because if you haven't gotten rid of them, no matter what you do, you're going to keep making it. You understand? So if you don't
Mm-hmm.
stop making it, it doesn't matter how good anybody is at getting rid of it, it's going to be back. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got to learn to stop. And I want you to think about something. Suppose you have a little tumor in your breast, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
grow and it doesn't spread. You'll live a normal life.
Exactly.
So the real question you're asking the doctor when you go there is not how do I get rid of it, but the real question you're asking is how do I stop making this stuff, right? And so that's why
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally you've got to do that. So now that you've pulled the plug, how can you get rid of the tumors that are there? With what we call metabolic therapies, high dose vitamin C, because it produces a product called peroxide, and
Mm-hmm.
CFCs don't have an enzyme called catalase. They can't neutralize it. Healthy cells do. So it's actually good for the healthy cell and it's bad for the bad cell. Good for the good guys, bad for the bad guys. And so you kill it not because it's a poison, but because it was metabolically unable to deal with it. Same with ozone, same with artesunate, same with curcumin, IV curcumin, same with uh, alpha lipoic acid. So there are these things. Um, and you know, there's
So should all these therapies be intravenous, or can you take the supplements as well? I know you said that the vitamin C is high dose vitamin C intravenous. And about the others?
well, the vitamin C eliminates CFCs in about 7 or 8 different ways, and only
Mm-hmm.
one of them requires the IV. So if you're getting enough,
Okay.
like the way I recommend is get some liposomal sodium ascorbate and get a
Let's go
2,000
back.
milligrams. Take it about 4 or 5 times a day, and or get a bottle of a liter of water, put in 8 grams of powdered sodium ascorbate, and just take a little sip from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The reason I say a sip is because when you take it that way, you can only absorb 200 milligrams. So if you take more than that, you won't absorb it. So you just little sips here and there, and you'll absorb it all. Or if that's too cumbersome, just do the sodium ascorbate in a liposome, because liposome we can absorb more because it goes through the lymphatics.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
Yes.
so that you wouldn't believe it. We won't go into it today, but you're doing 5 or 6 fundamentally things that's turning off the CFCs. The only benefit you get from the IV is you get what's called the pro-oxidant effect, where you produce that peroxide. So that's good, absolutely. But if you can't get to it, do this. The other thing, if you can't get to it, you can starve the CFCs by taking something called dichloroacetate, DCA. They use it
Mm-hmm.
on children. And what it does is it blocks the CFC from fermenting. It blocks fermentation. And then the other one is alpha lipoic acid. So if you're taking DCA and alpha lipoic acid orally, you're blocking them from eating. They can't eat. And the only way they can live is they have to go through the mitochondria the way normal cells do. So you're giving it a choice. You go either die or be normal. And so it says, okay, I'll try to act normal for a while. So anyway, that's what that would do.
It sounds
So
like an angry parent. Either die or be normal.
exactly.
I've got 3 teenagers. I think I fall in that category.
I hear you. So but that's it. So if you pull the plug by getting rid of the thing, and you're going to bed early, you're cleaning out your colon, you're doing enemas, you've got your mouth taken care of. Now you're on your way to being to heal. Now your body's ready to heal, and now you're going to use vitamin C, ozone. Those are the intravenous therapies, but they're hard to find, and it's hard to find somebody who's good at it. So the other things
Mhm,
you need to take, you must take iodine, because unless you're Japanese and you eat seaweed all day, which we don't,
mhm,
you need iodine because you got to get your thyroid working. You need vitamin A, like we said, vitamin D, and vitamin C, because those are all low in CFCs. So you take extra. You got to have vitamin D you take about 20 to 30,000 units a day until your blood level is around 100. you take about 40,000 units a day of vitamin A until your blood level is the upper limits of normal. And then you take the vitamin C until you're fasting ascorbate level is around 50, then you know that you've got enough. In that condition, you almost can't develop CFCs unless you got a root canal. But anyway, so by doing that, and the other one is melatonin. Melatonin is kind of the master gland of the immune system. And we make less and less as we get older. We're also exposed to fluoride, which causes calcification of the pineal gland, and we don't produce as much melatonin. So, but melatonin, if you were to study it, you'd say, oh my God, it's incredible. But anyway, one of the reasons that old people, there's two reasons why old people lose their immunity. Number one, their thymus gland shrinks. They don't make T cells. And number two, they don't produce melatonin, which is the conductor of the immune system. So they get both going down. So blind people get less CFCs than people who can see because they're always in the dark. So they're always making melatonin. So, so you take 120, 130, 180 milligrams a night, and that's not going to shut down your ability to make it, because people say you got to work your way up to it. You start with 5, 10. People, because if you take like too much of any other hormone, right? Like that's how birth control. They give you synthetic estrogens, so your ovaries don't ovulate, and you're not going to get pregnant because your body thinks it's got estrogen. But it's the same with testosterone or anything. But with melatonin, since it's not really a hormone, it's made by the pineal gland. In other words, it's a neurotransmitter, immune modulator. That's what it is. So no matter how much I took, the minute the lights go down below a certain luminosity, it'll make melatonin. That's just what it does. So you don't have to worry about that. But remember, it is how it makes your T cells work, your natural killer cells work, your dendritic cells. It is big time. So, and so those are the things: iodine, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, and melatonin. Now, if you're taking the iodine, that means your thyroid is probably not functioning, which is also in charge of the immune system. So it takes about 1.5 years of taking 25 milligrams of iodoral or Lugol's, which is a nice formula. You can get these tablets, iodoral or Lugol's. You take that after about 1.5 years, it'll take to fill up your iodine deficiency. Then you'll find out that your thyroid's making enough thyroid. And remember, thyroid hormone is how your body makes energy. Energy is life. Okay, so when your thyroid is low, you're not making much energy. When it's high, it's like that. So so what you got to do is, while it takes 1.5 years to build up your iodine stores, you've got to get a natural thyroid supplement. You can go online and order Thyrovanz, Thyrovanz, and it comes from organic cows in New Zealand. And you can order it online, 75 milligrams. The way you test for it is you take your basal body temperature. You can't trust the blood tests. They're not accurate with thyroid. So you do your temperature in the morning before you get out of bed to go to the bathroom, because as soon as you start walking, your muscles will generate heat. That'll change your temperature. So you're lying down, you got to go to the bathroom, so you're doing it quickly, and you take your temperature for 5 days, and you take the average. If it's less than 36.8, then you're too low, and you've got to order the Thyrovanz. And anyway, and then you can keep doing that until you find the right amount that you need, because you want your thyroid to be functioning normally while you are replenishing your iodine. So you got to work on that. And then that's about it. You do, you got to meditate. The reason you have to meditate is meditation is just learning how to shut up. So people that are Christian or Jewish or even Muslim think that meditating is like praying to Buddha or something, but it has nothing to do with it. Meditation is the opposite of prayer. Prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening for the answer. So if you think of it that way, every time you pray, don't just get up and rudely walk away. Sit back and listen for the answer. And God, where is God? God's in our breath. Our breath is God. And when the breath leaves us, we turn back to earth, right? And so if you sit quietly, so do it 5 times a day for 2 minutes. Anybody can do 2 minutes. It's not a big commitment. 5 times a day. And you just quietly listen to your breath. You won't last 3 seconds, and then you'll be flying off. I should, I could, I would, I should. And the minute you know it, come back. And then you're gone.
Yeah, it's true.
But if you're doing it 5 times a day or just 2 minutes, after about a month or two, you're going to be able to last maybe 8-10 seconds. And there's a certain point that you're there where your mind goes, you go through a doorway and you wind up in a place called now. And now is eternal. It never began, it will never end. It's where God lives. Because what else is besides now? Tomorrow is an idea. Yesterday is an idea. And then there's could be, should be, might be, could have been, should have been, maybe, and if. None of them exist. The only thing that's real is now. I've been waiting for tomorrow 73 years, and it never came. It's always now. So now is eternal. And when you enter that room, guess what happens to your immune system? It's called psychoneuroimmunology. Your immune system goes, because when you're thinking, 80% of human thought is negative. Because you grew up with what? No, stop, don't. No, stop, don't. No, stop. So as long as even if you're picturing a beautiful lake with a rainbow, underneath it, you're going. So when you're thinking, your foot is on the brakes of the immune system. So the minute you turn your mind off, and they've done studies. I'm not just making this up. They've done studies.
I know.
Right. So it's called psychoneuroimmunology. So you learn to shut up, eat right, go to bed early, and then guess what happened? There are, instead of side effects, there are side benefits, and they're called. It's called vitality. It's called clarity. It's called just the feeling of happy to be alive, optimism. Those are the side benefits, right? And by the way, it's better than any drug.
Absolutely. I can believe that. Okay, Dr. Thomas Lodi, last one. If you can leave any words of hope for viewers that is currently struggling, what would be your last words of hope to encourage the people?
Okay. To let you know that the word that they use is not a death sentence. Okay, it's not a sentence, it's a word.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you a story, a brief one, about a woman who had breast CFCs, went all through her spine, her liver, and it was in her lungs. And I did an x-ray on her, and I couldn't find no normal lung. Okay. And she just went to the sorcerers in the hospital, the doctors, and they told her she had 3 weeks to live.
Oh.
They brought her to my clinic on a gurney. She couldn't even sit up. She had oxygen. They brought her to there, and they wheeled her in. And I went up to say hi to her. She grabbed my arm, and she said, "Thank God. Now I know I'm going to make it." Yeah, she had seen some videos. 6 weeks later, she was jogging to the clinic, and her husband was behind her in the car. 8 years later, I get a postcard from Paris. Now, why? Because she said, I know. She didn't say I believe. She didn't say that perhaps. She didn't say this is a good thing. I know. And when you know what's going to happen before it happens, that is faith. Faith has nothing to do with believing. You can only believe in things that are not true. Because if I say I believe you, that means I also doubt you. But if I say I know.
Yes.
I know. Okay. So she looked at me and she says, I know I'm going to make it. That was it. I should have told her. I could have sent her home at that point. She was done. Because when you say that, you know, that's faith. You take your foot permanently off the brakes of the immune system. And let me tell you something. A fully functioning immune system will get rid of, I don't care how much you have, maximum 1 week. It just gets rid of it. So that's the miracle. God, don't expect other miracles. God already gave us the miracle. The miracle is being alive. The miracle is having this immune system. We've got to get out of the way. We've got to take our foot off it. So now how do you go from fear to faith? The bridge is called knowledge. So my job as a doctor, which comes from Latin meaning to teach, is to teach and inspire. That's my job. My job is not to come up with protocols. It's to teach and inspire and to remind you. And by the way, if you ever think your body can't heal, I want you to go in the kitchen, I want you to get a knife, and I want you to cut your finger, and then I want you to watch it for 3 days. And you tell me what happened. It's going to heal.
Yes.
That's what your body was designed to do. And the only way it wouldn't heal is if something was in the way. Same thing. Get everything out of the way. I'm just telling you, when you know this, you're done. I promise you, you're done. I've had other people too. I mean, I have thousands of stories like this. It is attitude. When you know you're going to make it, and the only way you know is by understanding the reality. So, you know, I'm not doing this for any commercial reason, but I don't know anybody else talking about this in my field. But listen to me more. I'm free. You know, I'm free. It's on Instagram, Facebook, and all that. Listen and find out and be reminded that listen, this is a divine machine. It can heal. It's like a self-cleaning oven. What do? You close it and it heals. Same thing with this. Close your mouth. So fasting, cleansing. Anyway, the point is this. I promise you, and I'm telling you this from not theory. I'm telling you this from the fact that I have witnessed it for 40 years. That when you know you're going to make it, you're going to make it. And when you don't, you won't. So, got to get rid of that. So the problem is not in your breast or your pancreas or your colon. It's here. And we have to work on that. By the way, when you're eating healthy, now you're in a good mood. You find out that this works better. So it all works together. So by cleansing, you're going to, now you're going to be able to develop what you need to develop. So I just want you to know that I don't care how sick you are. Of course, there are points. And my only requirement with someone when I see them is that they want to live. And if they want to live, I'm there. And they'll make it. That's it. Okay. But you got to get out of fear. And the first thing you do, please believe me, I can't tell you how powerful it is. Don't ever use that word again. And don't go to the hospital. It's the house of horrors because they've already decided you're going to die. So when they look at you, they're looking at you as if you were dead already. And you have to keep in mind that 90% of human communication is nonverbal. So you're in a hospital where they decided, because you're stage blah, 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 that you're going to die. And everyone's telling you that, and you hear the worst thing you can do, it's called psychological terrorism, is to go in that hospital. Stay away from there. Find a doctor like me. If you need an x-ray or a CT, we can do it at a private place. We'll get blood tests. You don't have to go back to those guys because they're going to they're going to destroy you. They're going to destroy your mind and your heart. And that's where it happens. So believe me, I have that woman, 3 weeks to leave. You should have seen her. By the way, she's on my website as a testimonial. I'll
go have a look.
Yeah. So, but I'm just telling you, my word to you guys out there is get rid of the toxins, live a natural life as much as you can, no matter where you are, go to bed, and learn to listen to your breath, listen to God, be quiet, learn to do that. And if anybody is in your life that's toxic, like if you have a husband or a wife that is toxic, say, listen, I love you a lot, but I need to heal. So I'll meet you next year. Let's take a year off.
Taking time off. Yeah.
Because I need to stay. So, okay. So, and then, I had a woman do that. And you meet, and a year later, if you're still in love and you want to be married, okay. If you're not, you're not. But at that point, it's not going to be tragic. But I'm telling you, you've got to get all the toxins, and toxins are not just food and chemicals. It's also relationships, right? Yes. And it's hard to divorce your parents. So you got to, I don't know, move or something. Because parents can be toxic, children can be toxic, friends can be toxic. You've got to get that out because it will destroy you more than cigarettes.
Awesome. Dr. Lodi, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for this amazing discussion and sharing all your knowledge with us and encouraging the viewers. I really appreciate it. This was a really enjoyable interview. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a peaceful and a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Anytime I'll come back.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll organize the next meeting then.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Have a good night. Bye-bye.